So, Jai Gurudev, everyone. So, big
Hey
welcome to
Gurudev.
Mohini ji. Saw her with the first two classes, maybe back 2, 3 months back. So, good to have her here. So, we're starting chapter 4. Hmm. So, we'll chant the first three verses and then we will get started. Om Shri Krishna Paramatmane Namaha. अथ चतुर्थोऽध्यायः ज्ञानकर्मयोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच इमं विवस्वते योगं प्रोक्तवान् अहम् अव्ययम् विवस्वान् विवस्वान् मनवे प्राह मनुरुष्वाकवे ब्रवीत् एवं परम्परा प्राप्तम् इमं राजर्षयो विदुः सकाले नेह महता योगो नष्टपरं तप स एवायं मया तेद्य योगप्रोक्तपुरातनः भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं ह्येतदुत्तमम्. So the third chapter that we completed last session was Karma Yoga. And so the path is what, ultimately everything you have to soak in the knowledge, right? Jnana Yoga the Karma Yoga is a path to go through some actions, duties, in the attitude of Karma Yoga so that, we are able to be ready to achieve knowledge and be able to assimilate it, etc., and make it as a wisdom. So this chapter is a bridge between these two. Jnana Yoga part is covered in detail in many chapters. So this chapter will cover a bit about, bring in an introduction to what this jnana means. So he will start telling about himself not as a person called Krishna, but the divine force. And that you will start seeing. The second aspect of it is, if you and I were listening to something for the first time, right, any particular thing, you would but just wonder, all this being said, what is the authenticity of it? How do I know it's right? Right? I'm hearing all of this from Krishna, who was my friend at this time. What is the proof? Where is it all coming from? So that is where Krishna starts the very first couple of stanzas. What he says is, I taught this imperishable knowledge, this yoga. To whom? To Vivaswan. So Vivaswan is another term for Lord Sun. It is considered that when the creation was first created in the manifested form it was created, the first thing that was created was the sun, because that was needed to bring the rest of the life together. Now he goes on to say that Vivaswan taught this to Manu. Manu was one of the creations of Brahma, to create laws. So there is something called Manusmriti. Manusmriti is a set of laws that have to be governed by nature. So if you see, right, anything that you see outside, there is a set of laws that everything happens. The way the whole solar system works, cosmic system works, all the planets going into certain positions, etc. Everything goes by a certain law. And also in terms of seasons, etc. Everything, there is a prescribed law there. And also how man should live, like that also, the dharmic aspects also are there. So there's Manusmriti. So Manu was taught by whom? By Sun. And went on to Ishwaku. So the way to look at this is, this the tradition in our culture, if you go back, is always that, whenever I seek any knowledge, I share it with people. Absolutely. No one, there's nothing like a secret at all. Right. And so this was conveyed from one to the next person because there's no record keeping at that time. Right. So obviously you hear it. So it is all smriti. You listen and you absorb, and whatever you've absorbed, then you transmit it to somebody else, through the Gurukul system. And from there, somebody else picks it up. And that's how, we've come so far. And later on, of course, they started writing manuscripts in wood and, iron and many other things. And but those are very little. Those came much later, you see. But earlier on, it was all through the years. That is the reason, they said that, those days there was no Google, there was nothing to, look at or refer to, even as a book we are referring to now. So everything was in the head. So your memory absorption has to be so good. So if my memory absorption has to be so good, I have to be in the moment. If I wink even a second and my mind goes elsewhere, I would have lost it. I've heard this, from many other saints, Swamijis of today's and yesteryear. Their gurus used to be so strict. They would all say this, I will teach you only once. Whatever I teach you only once, there's no notes. You're not going to take any notes, right? And if you are able to answer questions that are subsequently on whatever I told you, if you are able to say it in the way I said it, then you continue. Else, you have to leave. That is how strict things were, right? Whereas Guruji is given everything on a plate, right? So liberal, so, forgiving in many ways possible. But not so was the case. And he himself has mentioned this. The yesteryear gurus were very, very strict with how things were given. So going back to the stanza, yeah. So all this knowledge was given by. So what he's saying is that whatever I'm telling you, Arjuna, is something that has been said from the beginning of the creation. Okay, so it's very, very authentic. It is ancient, and it is still relevant now. It will be relevant even later. So therefore, don't have any doubt on this whole thing. But then he goes on to say that, second stanza, this knowledge was handed on from one person to the other, as I mentioned earlier, regular succession. Somewhere it got lost. Somewhere it got misinterpreted. Somewhere it was not given the same importance as the gurus earlier. So what happened in all of this is there is a loss. And you cannot allow this loss to be there, right? So therefore, all these Upanishads got written later on, and then Bhagavad Gita written based on the Upanishads, etc. Right? All of this now, was to reinforce the teaching that a divine force had given to to Vivaswan. The same thing I'm telling you now. That is what he wants to, he's telling Arjuna, right? So, the way to understand this, right? This, if you take anything for that matter, even, you take more recent ones, right? Of course, this is several millions of years back when we are talking about when it was told to Vivaswan. But let's take even yoga, asanas, for example, or yoga, or you take even Ayurveda. It got lost, isn't it? So people like Gurudev, Guruji, and many others, they revived it. Meditation was lost, right? Patanjali wrote it. A lot of people followed it. Somewhere it got lost, misinterpreted. So there were multiple versions. The so-called yoga got misinterpreted into multiple ways. They called it yoga, didn't understand. They thought exercise was yoga, especially the West, right? And so, but now the authentic yoga, authentic Ayurveda is getting highlighted. If you just look at the number of Ayurvedic colleges maybe 50 years back, to what it is today, it is thanks to the revival, right? So like that, you can rhyme with that, right? Then you can rhyme also with this kind of a knowledge that was lost in between. And so, purpose of avatar of Krishna was to bring this knowledge to mankind. Of course, all the others about dharma, getting punished, etc. That's second. But the primary thing was to bring this knowledge. And that's the reason we are able to now benefit from this whole thing, correct? So then he goes on to say in the third verse, the same yoga that I That reason I'm telling you is because you are my devotee. You are dear to me. And this is also a supreme secret. So, a lot of words here, right? One is a devotee, right? Only to a devotee anything is told. You don't say this to a layman. Now, the secret word, right, is always misunderstood. Secret doesn't mean here that it is not, that's not meant to be told to anybody, etc. Secret means sacredness. Sacredness has to be honored, respected. And it is not something that can be understood by a layman from reading a book, unless it is guided by a guru. Only a guru can bring the secret aspects, so the sacred aspects of it to a common person so that it is understood. So the so-called supreme secret, right? So Guruji has talked about there are many secrets, right? Your death, your birth, many other things. There are few secrets that are still not revealed. So it will remain secret because you and I will not be able to relate, understand those. So devotees that are close to me, what people close to me means somebody who is understanding what I've said so far. Arjuna would not have been told this one had Krishna not felt the fact that Arjuna is understanding what I've been telling him so far from second chapter and third chapter. Based on the question that he's been asking, based on, the interaction that he's seeing, Arjuna is fully into it. He's in the moment. He's understood it. And hence now he is ready to receive it. You look at just art of living itself, right? Was everything told to us at the very beginning? So Guruji has been very carefully from the beginning. He's been bringing in small, different types in advanced knowledge, even more advanced knowledge only at the right time. In fact, he said this many a times, only when the time comes, I will say certain things. So Sanyam was not brought to us, suddenly, right? It happened after almost 30 plus years of art of living. And Sanyam 2 even much, later than Sanyam 1. Why? Because of, the readiness to receive something, readiness to understand a certain secrets. So here also, Krishna is saying, you are ready to receive the secret knowledge, the supreme secret knowledge, and you're a devotee, and hence I'm doing this. So, and it's always, people who receive this Gita knowledge, who are the people, if you think about it? One was Arjuna. The other was who, of course, all of this was being heard even by Dhritarashtra to Vidur, right? So there were only 2-3 people who were receiving this particular thing at the time and the Mahabharata war itself. Now, having said all of this, Arjuna has a very pertinent question. Now, remember, Arjuna is still operating. He's not yet gotten all the knowledge yet, right? So he's going to operate from. His question is very basic, and we'll chant that verse now. Arjuna vacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvatah katametad vijaniyam svamado proktavaniti. So, Arjuna has a very basic question. You're saying, you're now here in front of me. Your birth, what I see you, you're teaching me this. And you're saying, you taught this to Vivaswan. You taught this to, and Vivaswan taught to Manu, etc. I'm not able to understand. Basic question, right? Anybody, if you tell something like to a child, I taught this to somebody else, they say, how is it possible, right? I see you here. So then Bhagavan answers that question in the 5th stanza. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Bahuni Mam Vyatitani Janmani Tavacharjuna Samaham Veda Sarvani Natvam Veda Param Tapa. So here he says very clearly, you and I have gone through multiple lifetimes. Multiple lifetimes. We have come and gone, come and gone. Even you also, even me also. Only difference is I know all my past lifetimes. You don't know any of them. You know only the current lifetime. Right? So this we are all able to relate to it, right? You and I can't even go back to an earlier lifetime unless you go through, you know, the process is there only meant for certain people. Not everybody can, get a chance of knowing everything about the past, right? Now Krishna is saying, I know every lifetime of mine very clearly. You don't know. So this is again the first time he's giving this knowledge. Now the thing that comes up here, very subtle thing that you and I can relate to, right, is what all do we have memory of them in today's life, in this life itself? Do you have memory of everything that happened in from your birth till now? You can recollect maybe a few instances, good instances, not so good instances. Others are gone, right? They've gone. So divine has made us, given this trait to us of calls what I call as forgetfulness, which is a positive trait. You might say, why is positive? Why is it positive? Right? Memorization is a positive. Is forgetfulness also positive? If we had not had the ability, if I could remember all my prior lifetimes, do you think I'll ever come to the present moment? I'll always be thinking about the past, not this life. 10 lifetimes before somebody told me then, some person, boy, wife or husband or whatever it might be, I was at that particular time, or my son, my daughter, my in-law, whatever. And I'll be thinking about that. Forget future, forget present, only past. So present moment doesn't even come to the picture. So thankfully, Lord made sure that when you're born, you don't have any memorization of it. Even the current Janma also, certain things just disappear. You will not be able to recollect. So Guruji has said, no, do you remember 1 week back what you had for lunch? You will not know. You will not know, you'll be able to say, okay, I maybe this time might have gone there, etc. Right? We don't just know because it is made to be like that. That is our nature. Lord has given us this beautiful aspect of our nature, our mind, our memory, chitta, where there is certain aspect of forgetfulness. There is an aspect of memory also. So what you want is keeping memory of good things and forgetting bad things. Obviously, there are certain things we are not able to forget about bad things. So that is what, holds us from, really enjoying life because that comes and torments us many a time. Right? So, so moving on, sixth verse. Ajopi sannavyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim vyamadishtaya sambhavam yatma mayaya. So now he's going to get into, relating this Jnana Yoga path. And he'll bridge that also with Karma Yoga. You'll see the two getting linked here. Um, so what is the sixth stanza referring to? You see, sixth stanza is referring to I am Aja. Aja. Aja means what? Unborn. I am unborn. That means what? I'm always existed. So this is the first thing he's saying is what? I'm unborn. So typically when somebody is unborn, that means what this goes back to what we already learned in the second chapter. The soul, continues to, go through multiple janmas, taking different forms and shapes and so forth. But that is unborn because there is nothing like a birth or a death to it. So it is unborn. Imperishable nature, avyayatma. That means what? I don't perish, right? I continue to exist. And I just surrounding me, I go into different containers, which are called as bodies. And I'm the Lord of all beings. Bhutanam Ishwaropi San. I am the Lord of all beings. Prakritim Swamadishtaya. Everything, rules by my own nature. And this is interesting. Sambhavam Yatma Mayaya. By my own will, I can come back to a human body form at my own will, at my own freedom, which you and I don't have. So all of us, when we just look at as normal human beings, we are born based upon karma. Very simple. On the other hand, what Krishna is saying is that, he is a divine form. He manifests for a cause. He comes into a human form for a particular cause. And once the cause is completed, he leaves. You and I don't leave until certain karmas have to be, tick mark in a particular janma, prarabdha karma. Until that is done, we continue to live. And once the karma leaves, we also leave our body. When I say we, meaning the soul leaves the body and we perish as a body. So for us, right, what is manifesting is, sense organs, we are given a certain body, we are given a certain environment, a place, a shelter, a family, etc. to, to be able to experience the things that we wanted, that we were desirous of, based on our, tendencies, based on our impressions from the past. That's the only reason we are coming. Not so is the case for a divine person called Krishna. So in a sense, you can look at it as a bounding. Let's say, for example, you take a prisoner in a jail. Prisoner is chained, right? He's bound. He's put into a cell. He's in a certain environment only, and he has to confine everything to within that environment, whatever he do. He's limited by whatever he can do. So you take a jail, let's say Tihar jail. You take a Tihar jail. There is a convict. A convict is being put there because he's done some bad karma. True or not? But then there is also in the same jail, there is a superintendent of that prison. He also comes to the jail. Comes in the morning, he leaves in the night. Comes the next day, he leaves. So who's bound and who's free? The convict, because of the karma, is bound. Bound means what? He's confined. He has to fulfill certain things. Show that he is transformed. Then he can come out of the jail. Superintendent, this on the other hand is free. Similarly here, you and I, we are bound. We are bound by certain experience. We have to go through those things. We are given a family, we are given a certain environment, and we have to go through it to cleanse ourselves. Right. And that's why it's called bound. Bound means not by chain, but in a sense, that is what brings up all this attachment. That's what brings up all this desires, anger, all these things, right? Because of that boundedness. On the other hand, a teacher or a realized person or a Krishna is totally free because there is nothing binding him, right? He's available to everyone. So that is the difference, a superintendent versus a convict. So we have to, our life progression, what is to go towards the superintendent state for a period of time. Okay. So when you look at, then he says, I am born by my own self. This is interesting. I am born by my own self. Is a line here in the sixth stanza. There is always a classic example that is there in the Upanishads called Mandukya Upanishad, where they take the example of a spider. Spider creates a web out of itself, and it stays in that web, right? Spider web, if you notice, It's raw material is not coming. Let's say a potter makes a pot, right? He's getting the raw material from, clay, mud, etc. from outside, and then he puts it together and puts a pot together. A spider from its own saliva, so it is generating something out of itself, and so this will rhyme well with what Krishna is saying. I am created by my own self. Hmm. So that is the divine power that he's saying, right? So with my free will, I can be born anytime I want to come. You and I, because of our karmic nature, we are bound to come at a particular time where whenever it is conducive, we are born. We are bound to be born in a form. There's no choice that we have. So, therefore, the reason we are coming is going through each birth one at a time, whatever, to purify ourselves, to cleanse ourselves, to go through certain practices, so the next time we come, we are in a better shape than the previous one. And this continues. So here he's saying my Prakriti means the Lord's Prakriti is that he can come in his own will and will, and you and I will come at whenever there is no choice. So, all right, now we'll go. So then when you look at this entire thing, right? So what is the difference between here the Krishna as in not the body Krishna, but Ishvara Krishna, and a common person like you and I? We are born out of ignorance. Ignorance means not knowing a true nature still. We know conceptually, but it's still a very limited understanding. We have got some experience, but it's still limited. So, and our whole journey is to cleanse that ignorance, and that ignorance cleanliness comes with knowledge. And for that knowledge to sink in, you have to go through certain upasanas, certain practices, certain kriyas, etc. So you therefore have to go through, for the ignorance, you have to go through the journey of punyam, papam, doing good deeds, doing dharmic needs, etc. All of that has to be done. That is one aspect of. On the other hand, the same thing when when Krishna says, "I come on my own," he's not coming because of ignorance. He's already, supreme bliss. He's complete, absolutely no ignorance. Nature of life for us, as I said earlier, we are bound, and because of that boundedness, there is sorrow. We go through this opposites a lot. Not so is the case for persons, right? Supreme bliss all the time. They also go through difficult challenges, no question about it. But they're always blissful. So there's nothing binding them. So, and we are our shariram, our body is being given what to, to fulfill certain things, right? Somebody's, made to work as a plumber. Somebody's made to work as a doctor. Somebody's purpose is to do healing. Somebody's purpose is, so those things are governed based upon our, desires, based on our impressions that we have carried in the past, and that we have to fulfill. There is no choice. No choice, absolutely, right? There is the shariram, on the other hand, for somebody, like a divine person, for a sage, that shariram doesn't have any purpose. It is just a body, just an outer covering, just to be able to do the transaction. The shariram is not there to fulfill a particular karma or to do punya or, do anything like that, right? Because everything that he does is only for the welfare, he or she. So for us, therefore, how to look at it? We are here to exhaust our vasanas, our impressions. Absolutely no vasanas for a divine form. There's nothing, already cleansed. We are here only to protect to uplift, you know. And that is the reason they say a human form is sometimes a slave form. And that's the reason, on the other hand, a divine form is considered a master. Why do we say master, master? Because he's a master. Slave means somewhere there is a boundedness. We are a slave of our mind. We are a slave of all our vasanas, because of which we do certain things. Each one of us bound to do certain things only based on our vasanas. Right? You can't say, I will do something different. In that sense, we are a slave, right? We may say we are not a slave as in Roman Empire, where they were chained. Not that kind of slave, but we are mental slaves. Not so in the divine form. So this is just, so going back to the Tihar jail example, a thief versus um, a thief when he's taken out right out of the prison, he's bound, he's surrounded by policemen. A president, when he goes to the jail, he's also surrounded by policemen. But in the thief case, to you know to make safeguard the thief so that he doesn't run away, the police is there. On the other hand, the president controls the police. See the difference? Same case, both of them are surrounded, but for good different reasons. All of these are just to give a contrasting view of, um, the the nature of birth and the nature of, and what are the aspects in one's life that we can compare of a divine form such as Krishna that he's articulating here when he says, I have, complete freedom of when I have to come into this body. Okay. Go to the seventh stanza. Yeah, so we already have seventh. Yeah, so we'll do seventh and eighth together, huh? And these stanzas you already know very well. Very, very, very powerful, popular stanzas. यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानमधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम् परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे. So very clearly what these two stanzas say, for the protection of the righteous people, or to remove huge adharma that might be prevailing, and to bring dharma into the mankind, I take forms. I take a form, a human body form, to cleanse these things. And this when he says this here, right? We two things come to mind, and yeah, so that is the first seventh, and the eighth one is also same thing, the protection of the good people, destruction of the wicked people, establishment of righteousness. They convey similar meaning. And of course, in this whole process, he liberates a lot of people. When we say uplifting people, people who can be uplifted and be brought to the level where they have to be not born again in the human form, that part also gets done. So that's where all the saints, the gurus, etc., all of them, and also Krishna as an avatar. So here, Guruji has also mentioned this. It is not that, for everything there has to be an avatar. There are so many of us. There are, of course, saints. You see every year, even at this particular end, there are probably hundreds of saints throughout India. And if you go the world over, there are probably Zen saints and many others throughout the world. All of them are there, they are uplifting people. And even outside the saints, even a common man, there are many who are doing that thing. So nature makes sure that whenever certain things go tilted the totally other direction, in the negative direction, there are, ways and means to make sure that it doesn't go astray. Some balance is created. So either saints, avatars, whatever it is, because how many avatars are there? It's not like, and Krishna says in every yuga I come as an avatar. But a yuga itself is several million years. And in one Kali Yuga, there's so much of things happening, you can say every, one saint, one avatar, is that enough to take care of all the things? Not possible, right? That is the reason what Guruji said is that, it is, avatar is definitely the form that he's referring to, just Krishna here, but also ordinary people, saints, also come in, and many of them in their own little ways, they are also uplifting people, transforming people. If you look at all the people that he has created, Guruji that has created through volunteers, through teachers, each one of them in some fashion or the other is uplifting, right? Teaching meditation, teaching courses, healing people. And healing can be done mentally, healing can also be done at a body level, emotional level, everything, right? So if you can see this in whole thing encompassing, what he's saying is that whenever something has to be done, I come into play. I take care of things. So, so if you look at that, and she says, I'm born yuge yuge, sambhavami, I'm born in every particular thing. Yeah. So here are a couple of things that we have to also see, right? When he talks about when he's trying to tell us all about himself and all of this, right? We have to understand what does he also want us to appreciate in all of this. Is he so when you look at you and I, right? When you go to a beach, I was there in a beach a couple of days back, so it was lines very well. You sit in the corner of the beach, right? You see the waves coming up and down, coming up and down. And then, of course, a ocean at the back, which is still. But closer to the shore, you'll see the waves going up and down, right? And every wave goes up for a period of time. Some bubbles come up and then they subside. Again, another wave comes up. You and I, right? We are those little waves. We have a limited time, right? Some wave is big, some wave is small. But there is an identification. I am that big wave. I am that small wave. That's where ego comes in. I am big. I'm small. I'm superior. I'm inferior. Ocean, on the other hand, which is still calm, serene, etc. There, absolutely. And ultimately, where does all this waves go up and down, merge back into the ocean? So the journey for each and every person, ultimately, to from a mortal being, as we call it, to an immortal, um, you know, thing, is to go through this journey and to come to realize that I am ultimately only that ocean. I am water, and to lose that identity. The problem with all of us that we get into, the problem is the identity aspect of it. Right? I am this. I am that. And because of that identity, there is a clash of interest between two sets of people, and that is where emotions run, etc., right? So the more I look at my wave and the next wave next to me is also the same water, is part of the same ocean. It is just that for a moment that wave has come up, it will go away also. So this also says one thing, right? Whatever comes up has to go down. Whatever you come to live for a period of time, you have to leave. So all of these get conveyed, gets conveyed in this particular thing. So therefore, when we look at this entire thing, the shariram that we talk about, or the body form there that we talk about, is to slowly realize all these things. What are the traps that are there in my life that I have to understand first, and slowly come out of it. And that understanding can come only through knowledge, awareness. When situations come, awareness of that knowledge, and then see how to apply that knowledge in my life. Hmm. Okay. Fine. I'll go to the 9th verse. जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति मामेति सोऽर्जुन. Yeah. So building upon what we already said, right? He says here, person who understands my true essence, my divine birth and action. He is not, he comes to me, he's not born again. Of course, whenever we, ultimately our goal is what everybody's goal. Even an insect at some point has to go through the human form, ultimately, realize and not be born again. Everybody's journey is that. It's just a question of how many janmas we all have to go through to reach there. And so in all of this, therefore, what is it is as I said earlier, we go through these, we go through multiple things, right? If you look back even earlier in your life, right, we used to do what is called as when we call it upasanas or even sitting here, upasana sitting here. We used to be worshipping what is called as a form worship, right? Um, Parents would have taught us, this particular god on a particular day, etc. It's called saguna. Saguna means what? I'm able to identify with a Lakshmi. I'm able to identify with a Vishnu or with a Shiva, and hence for me, therefore, when my god is therefore Krishna, is Vishnu. My god is therefore, uh, Shankara or Linga, whatever it is. Slowly and steadily, as we get, more and more with that understanding, we said behind the form there is a energy. The form was created by our sages. In fact, earlier on the Vedic times, early Vedic times, there was no form at all. But from Vyasa time, everybody realized that for a common man, it is very difficult to relate to the abstract level of understanding of a formless. So hence forms were created with different attributes. For somebody, let's say, who wants to become businessman, he'll say Lakshmi. For somebody who's in studies, we say Saraswati. Right? So we had created all these, gods also in forms, but they are again a path to the ultimate. They are not an end in itself. Even today, for many, it is still an end in itself for many. Right? They look at, for me, this is my God. That's it. There is no other. And sometimes it is so bad, right? That people look at, my God is this, your God is that, they are not the same. I will not come to your temple, etc. Let's not get into that, right? So we are all evolved beyond that through Gurudev's knowledge. So we go beyond that and we look at commonness. We look at the energy behind everything rather than the form that, where we celebrate Krishna Jayanti. We celebrate, Shivratri, which is coming in a few days' time. But look at behind what is all about. Yeah. So let's go now to the 10th stanza. Very beautiful stanza here, 10th one. वीतराग भयक्रोध मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः बहवो ज्ञानतपसा भूता मद्भावमागताः. So if you see in all of these verses, he says how to attain me, how to reach me. And that's how he ends all these stanzas. How, what ways to do it? That's what all of Gita is all about. And he peels it from multiple layers, multiple ways. Sometimes he says the same thing in a different way so that, one can relate to it. So here in this 10th stanza, first thing he says is Gita Raga Payak. Gita Raga means what? Payak Krodha means what? free from attachment, bhaya, fear, krodha is anger. And they're all related. They are not three separate things, right? What is attachment? We typically have attachment towards people, object, or situation, isn't it? I'm attached to my daughter. I'm attached to my son, to my husband, to my mother, right? Or teenagers will say boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, right? Attached, super attached. Right? Without it, I cannot be. So there is a subtle difference between love and attachment. All of us sometimes get into this dire region, right? Because we ask any mother, they'll say, I love. So what is the difference between there? Because, one will say attachment is what makes me do certain things. Attachment is, when the way to look at attachment is till the time that the child is up to a certain age, you have to be attached. When I say really, a mother has to be attached to that little baby, right? Every little cry, every little, sign of any distress from a child, from a baby, mother immediately drops everything and takes care of it. That attachment is needed. But as you grow further, your son and daughter become a teenager. Is that attachment needed? Are they still depending on you for food and everything else? Slowly and steadily, they are also doing certain things, right? But then, as parents, we get attached to the fact that, he's my caretaker. He's going to take care of this. He's going to get married. She's going to get married. How am I going to live a life without it, right? So that's where all these little things, I'm talking about at a family level, right? Then we have attachment towards maybe somebody else outside the family also. Then attachment towards objects, right? Could be some particular, gadget or a car or a house. All of these come in. And third one is situations. Nothing to beat, Gwalior, nothing to beat Delhi, nothing to beat, this beautiful place in Kerala, right? I know I'm dissatisfied here, so I drop this place and I go there because that is where I'm attached to that place. All of these situations, places, all of these. What this does is attachment. If that's being met, you're happy. But the moment you see that, there is a possibility or a risk of that attachment going away, both fear comes in, and with the fear, then anger comes in. I think I've given this example to you earlier also. Let's say you have a son, right? And he's growing up. He's still not fully independent, but, he goes out to meet a friend of his or whatever. And, it says, I'll come back. And let's say there's no cell phone, etc. So cell phone today makes it easier. He goes and you trust that he's going to come back. And this night has come, that person has not come. So what happens first? And you're very attached to that son. What's the first thing that comes? Is fear. Is he safe? Is he, if anything happened to him? Should I call the police station? And then after some time, he does come into the house, slowly sneaks in. What happens? Is that fear there now? It's now anger. Why did you come so late? We've been so worried about you. Blah, 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 pointing fingers at that person, right? So attachment, fear, anger. This is an example, but you can pretty much relate it to anything. I want to buy something from Amazon because I'm attached to this iPhone that has just been released. But guess what? The next day I get a message from this one, supplies are out. It'll take another 6 months for that to come. You get wild at Amazon, the stupid Amazon, fit for nothing, blah, blah, blah. Yes or no? So, be it object, be it people, be it situations, these small attachments can really, be, and Krodha is the ultimate, right? Because when anger comes, physically, your BP is up, your emotions are dry, you can't think clearly, clarity is lost, and you can't think intellectually, right? Your mind has lost its potential to discern anything. So what he's saying here, therefore, is these things So you slowly reduce your attachment, automatically the other two things get taken care of. So if you have to move from a worldly life, which is full of attachment, into a life which is takes you closer to the divine, the first things we have to address is attachment. Now, attachment comes from what? Desires, attachment, they're all related, right? So I desire a phone, it leads me to attachment. So I have to come out of these things. So the more I'm dependent, therefore, on worldly things, world here meaning people, situations, objects, and all of that, the more I am caught up in the world. The moment what he's saying is that you slowly get freed up. Gita raga bhayakrodha manmaya mamupashritaha. Right? If I slowly get freed up from this, that means I go from a dependence of the world to a guru dependence or a God dependence or a divine dependence. Yes, I am going through some situations here, right? But am I counting on person A to do something or the situation to occur? Or I say, I am, no, I'm, you take care of this, right? Go down, drop. Why does Guruji say always drop your worries here, drop your worries here? He wants us to make sure that he comes out of this thing. When you come to the ashram, he says, when you leave from here, drop all your worries, put it into that waste, that basket. I will take all of it. So he's receiving all of that. Right? So, um, so therefore, for us, this raga, bhaya, krodha, right? The journey is to slowly come out of these. And how do we come out of this? Through a combination of karma yoga and jnana yoga. Because you have to go through karma to experience things. You can't say with knowledge alone. What are you going to use the knowledge for? Somewhere I have to apply it, right? Towards my duties, towards my activities. And how long can you keep on meditating? How long are you going to be sitting in front of your puja room all the time? You have to get your hands dirty. And by getting your hands dirty by doing certain things, you then use that knowledge to translate into certain actions. How I respond to certain situations. How much do I accept or not accept? And that can come only with situations, right? That will come only with certain actions. It will not come if I'm going to sit in a corner and just say, I'll close my eyes and meditate for the rest of the day. So therefore, to attain what is called it's also referred to as Godhood. To achieve my own Godhood, which is my true nature. Guruji refers to it's your nature. Your true nature is bliss. But what is covering it all up as layers of dirt on a clear diamond is all the dirt, carbon coating, etc., which gets cleansed here through karma yoga and jnana yoga. So, and that is the reason we go through all of these things, and we are all gifted by the fact that we have a guru in our life. But people who don't have guru in their life, they go through they seek the knowledge, they go through this, and maybe when the right time comes for them, this janma or whenever janma, they get a guru, and then it continues like that. So that is the reason, to go through this knowledge, to go through this, when there is a divine power in a human form available, that we can attend a satsang of, we can hear his knowledge almost on a day-to-day basis. Nothing can beat it. We just should feel so much of gratitude um, towards this. So so we have some understanding now about these obstacles, right? These obstacles of this attachment, which is associated with raga and bhaya and the krodha, correct? Okay. We'll go on to the 11th stanza now. Now here in this thing, that one thing that comes to mind here is practices, traditions that we follow, right? So if you look at all the practices, right, when I say traditions, what is the tradition that we have in that Krishna is referring to here also, that the one of sharing, sharing, sharing. So even in families it is done, but not very, articulately done. Those years, in many times the guru and the teacher would be father and son, father and daughter, and make sure that the son and daughter learns everything from the father or mother, and then that son, when daughter, when they become parent themselves, they would then convey to the next level, etc. Right? So here also, when we look at ourselves, we have to see how much are we sharing, not just about cooking, this, that, etc. I'm talking about living life, about our samskaras, about our pujas, right? What has to be done, how it should be done. We call that as tradition, right? When Shivratri comes, when Navratri comes, every place you go to, there is a certain tradition followed. There are certain upavasas that are done. There's some fasting done. And all of them are done for a particular reason. Nothing is there which is done, which is just superstition. Everything has a purpose. And the more we are able to relate that purpose to whenever we share this with others, why we are doing that in today, especially in today's generation. When you and I were young, whatever your mother and father said, we just listened and we did it. We never questioned. But today, children question, why do I have to do it? And hence, it's important to tell them not only what you do, but why you should do it, so that they are able to relate to it. Right? Why should I have to do Kriya every day? Why is it that I have to do Navaratri day, I have to follow A, B, C, D things, etc. There is a reason, right? Why is it, fasting needed? Why is it that, you follow certain other puja practices, etc.? Everything has got a message. Because at the root of all of that, any religious practice or spiritual practice is about yourself. It is about cleansing you. It is about uplifting you. Yeah, the person is not doing to satisfy a parent, father or mother or father. And if that isn't, it will never happen, right? Anytime they're doing it to please somebody else, people will not follow. Anytime that they say, this is for my own self upbringing, I have to do this, then it relates to them. So if you see all of this, that is something that has to get internalized. And I'm sure we do to a large degree, but many a times, then we realize sometimes, I've said all of this, yet it's not my daughter is not doing this, my son is not doing this, etc. All of these situations occur. Okay, now to the 11th verse. ये यथा मां प्रपद्यन्ते तां तथैव भजाम्यहम् अववत्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्या पार्थ सर्वशः. So here he gives a beautiful thing about, a classic example is this. If God controls everything, why does a thief, is given the freedom to do robbery and then he also gets punished? That thief goes and tells, the court, I blame it on God. God should have prevented me from doing that robbery. He made me do the robbery, and now I'm also getting punished for what I have done. It's unfair. So here Krishna says very clearly, if you invoke me in whatever mindset you invoke me, I shall grant you. You invoke me, and you wish for a particular good deed to be done, I bless you. Tatastu. On the other hand, you want to do something, you're dynamic, but then you want to use it for harmful means, and you take a dagger and try to hurt somebody. That also, it's up to you. Tatastu. You bring happiness to others, I bless you. You want to bring sorrow to others, tatastu. Best way to relate to this is what, if you take a car. In a car, we have petrol, right? Petrol is needed. Without the petrol, if the petrol is gone, the car doesn't move. But when the petrol is there, who's the person who's governing the car, where it is going? Petrol is needed to start the car, to take you somewhere. But who is taking you somewhere? The driver. The driver, the steering wheels, the brakes, right? But who's controlling all of that? The driver. So the divine is like that petrol. Without petrol, car cannot move. So petrol is the blessing aspect of that to the driver. Now, what the driver does, he wants to go to Malleshwaram, he wants to go to Rajajinagar, he wants to go to the airport, and how he drives it, whether he follows signals or no signals, gasoline is not responsible. Yes or no? So therefore, God is not responsible for what you and I do. We have been blessed that, you do whatever, I give you the total freedom. How you do it, it's up to you. If you do it for wrong reasons, you will, of course, get the reaction to it, the response to it some other day. Right? A child puts into the electric plug socket the finger, you'll get the shock right away. Some others, the shock treatment will occur later, the same janma or maybe even the next janma. So here, what Krishna is very clearly articulating is that whatever people approach me with, ye yatam mam prapadyante, tam sataiva bhajamyaham. Tam sataiva bhajamyaham means I reward them as it is. I am not, distilling. I'm not advising. Don't do this, etc. It is your free will. You do whatever you want. So, but you will definitely go through that way. The reason it is done is that this way, right? Is we always learn from experiences, right? It's when I don't know how to drive a particular car, and I say I'm going to drive it, and I get into an accident. Thankfully, it only got hurt. I realize then and there I should have gone through a better coaching. So, so, so life is also about teaching us experiences. So it is good to sometimes go through bad experiences so that we learn, right? However it might be. So whether what a saintly person does versus what a sinner or a robber does or a crime person does, right? Everything is best because we've been given the equipment, right? We have a body, we have a mind, we have an intellect. That equipment has been given to us. How I use that equipment is totally up to me. You can also take the example of electricity. Electricity is just the blessing aspect for a bulb to function, for a fan to function, for an air conditioner or a refrigerator to function. Now, power has gone and, but you want all the lights on, etc. How long will it last? Right? So you have a backup electricity option. So you have to know what to turn on, what to turn off, etc. Right? You can't say electricity is responsible for my, for my fridge not working here, etc. Right? So you therefore have to have some understanding, right? But not blame the thing. So here, Krishna, why is Krishna saying is that, he's saying, I'm just simply an enabler. Without me, a sinner cannot do a sin. Without me, a saint cannot, reach. You cannot even blink an eye without my presence. Not possible. How, therefore, you want to live your life is up to you. Again, how you live your life is you first understand through knowledge, through experiences, through karma yoga, again go through bad experiences. You have a cause and an effect thing. So you do a wrong thing, that is a cause for the next effect. And in that effect, you'll go through the experience. There's no choice. So and this cycle continues until we get to a stage that I have to go beyond all of this. I have to do actions, right? Once I understand what is a dharmic action, what is not an dharmic action. You remember in the third chapter, We talked in the Karma Yoga about, you know, the importance we play in the entire karmic loop, that all of us are dependent on each other. So many things we learn in the third chapter. All of them come into play here. So that is what we say. So we'll stop here and continue the next class.